Developing the Leader Within podcast, leading beyond limits.
Welcome back, everyone. If you haven't subscribed, please do so right now, as it'll help us getting our show to others and help us get to our next milestone. Make sure to catch us streaming on Parade Deck, on Roku, and Amazon Fire TV on the Purpose Place Network, and catch our exclusive members-only content, Going Deeper Within, on the Lions Guide Academy. Today, we are speaking with Dr. Farah Laurent. Farah is a nurse career coach and the host of Nurses Making Money Moves. I love it. She is a speaker and an author and helps new graduate nurses in large metropolitan cities in New York and California land their dream job and secure salaries they deserve. Farah, welcome to the show.
Hey, welcome. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Quite the honor to be able to have this conversation with you today. So thank you.
Well, folks, we've been waiting for a while, but I am excited about this conversation. If you follow Farah on LinkedIn or any of the social platforms, you know she is making moves. So we're going to be talking about from career shift to power brand strategies every leader needs. But before we get into that conversation, tell us a little bit about you.
I'm excited to get into it. So yeah, a little bit about me. I, immigrated to Canada at a young age. I was 9. I always knew I wanted to go into healthcare, so decided to become a nurse. Even though, my family, most immigrant families are like, oh, be a doctor, be a doctor. I was like, no, I don't want to be a doctor. I'm going to be a nurse. Throughout school, I loved it. One clinical instructor actually, was really inspirational to me. She was an ER nurse. And then I had another instructor who was not as inspirational. She asked me what type of nurse I wanted to be. And I said, ER nurse. And she literally laughed at me, laughed in my face and said, you'll never be an emergency nurse. And then in my head, it clicked. And I was like, okay, watch me. I will be an ER nurse. And that's kind of how it started, that bold type of thinking. And not only did I get an ER job, I got 2 ER offers as a nursing student before I even passed my boards in Canada. And then I started working 2 days after graduation when all my friends were still looking for jobs, right? So fast forward, I always promised myself that I would be a really good, inspiring, fun educator to really inspire nursing students to do what it is they want to do and really support them. So that's what I did. Eventually, I did travel nursing, moved to New York City, worked in various ERs, level 1 trauma centers, which is like top, ERs, all the way to NYU. Became a clinical instructor for NYU School of Nursing. And that was my favorite job because I was able to really connect with these nursing students. And they're like, you're our favorite, like you're the best. I was like, because, it's that connection, because I remembered what I needed as a nursing student. So, then I went on to some leadership roles in education, not without challenges though, of course. There's a lot of, discrimination and things that happen in the workplace, but I was very driven. So I quickly rose to some director level positions in education, and then moved into some academia positions, all the way up to associate dean and then director of education. And then throughout all those experiences, I felt like I could make a bigger impact in a different way, not so restricted. So I was starting to look at nurse entrepreneurship. And I thought, I'm always helping new nurses. I'm doing it for free. Why don't I just turn this into a business? So I did a nurse career coaching business. And before I started, people were like, of course, you're like, they're like, oh, nobody's going to need that. Universities have career services. I was like, yeah, but they're not nurses and they're not me. So I quickly still did it. So 2021, that summer, I knew nothing about business, opened up my own nurse coaching business. And then it's kind of evolved from that, where I do one-on-one coaching um, with new grads mostly, get them these, these dream specialties that they're really interested in. And it's evolved to like me writing books and then having a conference and all that. So that's kind of a little bit about the journey. Yeah.
Well, I love that resume there, but I've been able to witness it. And that's the beauty of LinkedIn is that you get to see
Yeah.
everybody's journey and growth and how they
Hmm.
evolve. And I remember when you set this coaching journey into play and,
Yeah.
cheering you on, of course, having grown up in New York myself, knowing,
Yeah.
hey, that's a tough industry and a tough place to try to do it, but I
Yeah.
saw it. And so it's been such a joy to watch you evolve. And there are many leaders, and you mentioned this earlier. You
Yeah.
get your good ones, you get your not so good ones. But many
Yeah.
leaders hesitate to pivot careers because of fear, right? They're
Right.
starting over. How can they reframe their existing leadership experience as a transferable asset when branding themselves for a new path?
Oh, I mean, this is one of my favorite things, even though, like we talked about, I focus a lot on nursing or nurses, but really this is applicable to any leader. Um, I believe, having adaptability is one of the best traits that you can have as a leader, right? Especially me being a former emergency nurse, you know, you never know what's going to happen. So you constantly have to be flexible and have the ability to adapt. As we know, throughout the years, there's been so many layoffs. I've been laid off 3 times myself in the last 5 years, having a doctorate, all these certifications. So I want leaders to know, don't think just because you're secure in your current position that you can't be laid off, right? So to me, I always say you have to be resume ready and constantly acquiring new skills so that when you're, thinking, should I switch into a new role, you can take all those skills, like you said, that are transferable and then be ready. Don't wait to build a personal brand. So when I first started my career, I had no clue what personal branding was, and a lot of leaders don't see themselves as a brand. But this is one of the core things that I like to talk about because personal branding, no matter what it is that you're doing, if you have a strong personal brand, people know you. They'll be able to connect with you better if if you have a personal brand. And your perception is better if you're managing your personal brand so that you're out there showing and demonstrating your expertise and your competence, going to speaking engagements, networking, doing all those things. You're going to be seen as an authority in whatever industry you are as a leader, so that sometimes positions may not even come up traditionally. Somebody may meet you and say, "Hey, I see that you're doing this, this, and this. We have this upcoming position. It's not even posted, and they may present it to you just because they see everything you're doing and building that brand." So I think you have to be just open to opportunities and constantly be building yourself. And we know continuous improvement and professional development is the best way to do that. Yeah.
Absolutely key points, folks, for you to not only write down, but follow. And Farah, I was one that experienced that. I was
Yeah.
called in, I had an interview for a position. They hired someone else, ended up calling me back saying, hey, we identified another area that we saw you was great at. Can you
Yeah.
come in? We don't have no job, no job title, no job description, but
Yeah.
we need you. And that
Yep.
is what that authority of branding can do for you. And I'm grateful for that. I did not know the power of that at the time, but
Yeah.
I really quickly realized that that was a thing. And to my surprise, when I went to the interview, what they had in front of them was my LinkedIn profile printed up on the table. And I was like,
Yeah.
whoa.
Yeah. I'm telling you, LinkedIn has really been a game changer. You know, I don't think people understand really what LinkedIn can do for them and what and how powerful it's really evolved and become. You know, back in the day, we know mostly people went on there just to find jobs. You know, I didn't even have a photo when I first started because I was like, oh, I don't want a photo of myself up there. Like, it's weird. And then later, I'm like, when I went into business, I was like, you know what? I got to flip that whole mindset and change that up because, right, if people don't know you, just like in business, if people don't know you, they don't have the ability to determine whether they like you, whether you would be someone they want to work with. And then you're developing that trust. Like the essential currency of being visible and building that brand is that trust building. And that's why people will offer jobs that are not even like, out there. Like I said, even me, I've been given positions that they just created for me, like you just mentioned. And I don't think people understand how powerful LinkedIn is for connections and that. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, as we're talking personal brand and
Mhm.
establishing that, what common mistakes do leaders make when trying to establish a personal brand during a career transition, and how can they avoid them?
Yeah, so this is a good question. So I think number one, I think most people don't understand truly what personal branding is. And of course, I know people have different um, definitions of really what it is. But I think at the core of what personal branding is really allowing other people to see you in the way that you want to be seen, but really reflective of your true self, not a made up person, right? So sometimes when people think personal brand, they think more big businesses and they think, well, I can't have a personal brand if I don't have a business. But that's not necessarily true. You don't have to have a business to have a personal brand. The easiest way that I can say what personal branding is I forgot, I think his name is Marty Neumeyer. He has a book called Brand Flip, and he talked about personal branding is not what you say you are, it's what other people say you are. It's how others perceive you. So, your job is to ensure that when you are taking whatever actions you're doing, whenever you're showing up, each and every interaction with individuals should be a true reflection of your values, your vision, your mission, and what you stand for so that people truly understand you and that they don't mismanage your brand. Because if you don't manage your brand, trust me, somebody else is going to make it up for you and it might not be accurate. So I think the biggest mistake is number one, not understanding what it is. Number two, they don't understand why they should build a personal brand, which is what we touched upon. It can give you the ability to advance in your career much more quickly. And then another mistake is they're just not sure what to share. So some people think that you have to put your whole business out there, but you don't. You don't have to share anything personal about yourself. If you don't, it could be strictly related to your work. But yes, sometimes people may want to know a little bit about you, but you control that, right? So you're in control of that personal brand and what you choose to share. So that's what I think the biggest mistake is. And then they're afraid of being visible, right? So they don't want to be on social media because they think it's not professional. And I don't know what that means. But, you know, it's okay to be on podcasts. It's okay to be on social media in a way that you want to be represented. So I think that's a big one. And then just like not networking enough was one mistake that I didn't do early on in my career. So yeah.
And you've definitely changed and flipped that script. because you are
Yeah, yeah.
networking and having parties and having functions, and I love seeing it. Now, it's so true. Folks, you need to own your narrative, right? The story
Yeah,
being
yeah.
told. And talk about stories. How does storytelling play a role in strengthening a leader's brand when entering a new industry or profession?
Yeah, so I think storytelling, we all say how powerful it is. Um, and some people just don't know how to really share, I guess, their story. So this is something that I pull into my coaching when I'm coaching new graduate nurses. And a lot of them, always come to me and say, well, I don't know why I'm not getting an interview. Or when I go to the interview, I don't get selected. And I'm like, it's because you're not standing out, right? So your story is yours alone and it's authentic to you. And when you share your story in a way that's relatable, in a way that highlights your skills, your traits, so that you can demonstrate that you are the best candidate for the position, people will remember you. And not only, you don't want to just be remembered, you want to be unforgettable. So part of that is also building that connection through the storytelling, right? So for me, a lot of times I'll talk about, I'm a first gen immigrant. I'm very proud of that. I talk about my journey in nursing with that story. That could have easily kind of like steered me in the negative direction, but I flipped it and made it into a positive thing. And I talk about that because I want to inspire this new generation of nurses. So I think, crafting your story in a way, depending on where you are, if it's for a job interview, if it's for presenting yourself as a leader, you have to craft your story, your origin story, and put it together so that it's people can easily tell your story. So that's another thing too, right? Like if someone meets you, they want to be able to recap things about you so that they could tell someone else, right? Because it's almost like promotional as well. Yeah.
And talk about promotional. You have talked about the fear that leaders have of being visible. So, in
Yeah.
your experience, what role does visibility through speaking, networking, social media, what role does it play in accelerating career changes for leaders?
Oh my goodness. It's such a game changer. You know, Number one, being, for example, being on a podcast, maybe you don't want to do your own podcast, but even appearing on other people's podcasts, such as this, right? You're able to reach a wider audience, right? So the networking is very important. Number two, it builds your communication skills, right? One of the top fears that most people have is public speaking, right? So the more that you're on social media or speaking at speaking engagements, on panels, you're developing your ability to be a great communicator. And it also helps with your competence, right? Because most leaders that are really great leaders are great communicators. And they can also inspire change that way because in clear communication, if you have a clear vision and that you're communicating that well to your team, they will follow you um, like more easily than someone who can't communicate what it is that they're trying to do. So that's another thing. And then, just like I said, developing those connections online is great. However, in person, like there's nothing like meeting somebody in person, like connecting with people. And that's where I think the magic happens. And that's why I was like so happy to be able to put on my first conference. And I had never put on an event before. But when I'm telling you, like that room was like, it was like pure energy, like electrifying, right? And you can't really get that online. So that's something else. Like people truly can get a good view in person, and then the relationships that you build are very powerful. So I think that is another thing that leaders need to think about, because they may think like, oh, I'm introverted, I don't want to go to another function, or I don't want to do this. But I think if you're strategic in which networking events you go to, it could really exponentially help you grow in your career. Yeah.
Yeah, and that in person, without a doubt, it's electrifying because I saw Precious, and
Oh, pressure.
and she'd been on the podcast a long time ago, but I love that sister, and when I saw
Yeah,
y'all two together, the videos, the pictures, I was all joyful because there were
yeah,
two
yeah.
ladies that I admire, that I've seen grow, that I've seen do things. Now they're connecting. That's just a dynamite, right?
Yeah.
So,
Shout out to Precious. I met her in Jersey at a small business conference. You see, networking. I was following her on LinkedIn, and we met at that small business conference, and we hit it off. We exchanged numbers. We became essentially friends. And then when I had my conference, I was like, oh, she has to be my keynote. And she's like, girl, I got you. And we just made it happen, right? It was just amazing. Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, New
People
York.
will support you. That's what it is. You end up building like a support, like almost like a tribe, right? When people know you and they'll support you in different things. I'm sure, such as your podcast, people know you. They're like, hey, I know this person. Like, let me support. Let me go out and do this or whatever initiatives, you have going on. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. New York City at its finest, right? We
Yes,
become
yes,
family quick. Now,
yeah.
you had mentioned earlier about the importance of adaptability for leaders, and also that their story needs to be authentic, right? You just can't just put a narrative out there and, a reputation that you can't
Yeah.
live up to. So, how can leaders balance authenticity and adaptability when rebranding themselves for a new professional identity?
This is a tricky one. I know in nursing and healthcare, a lot of times there's organizations or certain companies that do not like their employees to be visible and to build a brand, and they may not see that as professional, right? So then it's almost, it becomes a challenge. How much of myself do I really put out there? How much speaking engagement should I be doing? And it's really a balance, I think. And I always look at it this way, and I always say, I would not want to work for an employer or an organization that has a problem with me building a personal brand, especially with my past history, because so many people are loyal to certain companies for 10, 20, 15 years. And next thing you know, they get laid off, they lose their pension, and that loyalty is not like it was before. So to me, I ask people when they say, well, what if this happens or what if that? Like, I don't know if I want to be out there. I'm like, well, for me, I'd rather build my personal brand that no one can take away from me. And once you build a strong foundational personal brand, like you said, it's easy to pivot in different areas because you've now built this audience. People know you to be an authority, a leader. So I'd rather do that, right? So it could be challenging, but I think it's just what the person is comfortable doing. Um, but I think adaptability, to me, you could still create a digital footprint. I talk about this a lot. So when someone Googles your name, for example, you can write articles, you could do publications, other things that make the subject matter expert in your area. So I think when you do that, it's undeniable to the people. They'll be like, all right, cool. Like this person is an expert in XYZ. We're comfortable, going with this person or whatever. And then another big one is image, you know, like personal style and image. People don't realize I was the same way. We used to wear scrubs all the time in the ER, right? But when you go to professional meetings and things like that, you don't necessarily have to wear a suit, but looking good, I mean, there's research on this. Women who look good, who wear makeup, I think it's like they get like 30% more of an increase in their salary. So really, I've heard people like Renee Lindo, she spoke at the conference. She said, dressed how you want to be addressed, right? And I think that's so important. Like some people forget about that. And how you treat others. I mean, it sounds silly, but the connections that you make with people, like, like Maya Angelou, like how people remember how you make them feel. You have to have that charisma, that energy, and that positivity because nobody wants to be around someone who's negative, right? So that is something else that you have to remember, like how you treat others and how you resolve conflict and things like that, because you want to stay true to that, you know, person that you're saying that you are, so congruent, and you're not like out of pocket. So like I think emotional intelligence is another thing that's important, like, and having that restraint sometimes as a leader can be hard.
Hard
Yeah.
indeed, hard indeed. And I also know
Yeah.
Renee. She's been on the show as well,
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about fashion and playing the part, right? Because you have
Yeah.
to, we spoke about owning the narrative. That's complete. That's not just the
Yeah.
storytelling. Because if you tell a story and you show up like a bag of potatoes, you're going to detract immediately, right? And it's
Yeah.
not a
Yeah.
fake persona type of thing, but you have to own it all. You have to believe your own story before anybody
Right.
will ever take a chance to try to believe you. So thank you for
Yeah.
sharing all of that. That was wonderful. Now, I know
Thank you.
some folks know you for the nursing. They got to listen to you in general here as we're talking to leaders in
Yeah.
general.
Yeah.
So, what do you have coming up, and where can the viewer listener follow or support you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I feel like I'm always doing 100 things. Of course, all nurses are like always doing so much, but so I have my podcast called The Nursing Dose with Farah. That's on YouTube. They could subscribe. I stream live. Typically, once a week, I'll stream live on LinkedIn, and it goes on different platforms. NurseFarah.com is my website. So that's Farah with one R, nursefarah.com. You can check it out. I have different things on there. I actually just released a course, a digital course, and it's called New Nurse to Dream Role. It's basically everything that I do coaching one-on-one, packaged it up in a lower ticket offer for new grads that can't afford to work with me one-on-one. So they could check that out on the website. And then the most exciting thing is my second conference that's coming up in Tampa, Florida, March 6th and 7th, 2026. So tickets are out for that for early bird special. And this conference is really for aspiring nurse entrepreneurs and female entrepreneurs who want to come together. You don't have to be a nurse to come. And the reason it's on International Women's Day, right? Because it's about empowering women and really getting together to build businesses. And then I have a book coming up, Nurses Making Business Moves, which is going to be on personal branding. That's coming out October 21. And then I've been doing my business masterminds in Clearwater Beach, which is really a workshop in person over a weekend that you're learning fundamental things about business, and you get to hang out with other nurse entrepreneurs as well. So, yeah, I think I covered most of it. Yeah.
All right, you got space for one more. Folks, look, this is something that I get to witness on a daily basis with Farah, right? So I know she is making moves, she's doing things, and we'll have all those links and places to find her at as part of the show notes and the video, so I can make it more accessible. Go ahead.
I have one more. I actually have the course Nurses Making Business Moves at the University of West Georgia. And that's going to be in their continuing education department, which is a partnership that I'm so proud of, because who can say that they actually have a business course for nurses at a university? So that'll be coming up in October of this year as well. Yeah.
Well, busy October, and congratulations on that. That is a huge feat to get that into the school system, folks.
Thank
Thank you for being with us. Today's episode is sponsored by the Global Trends magazine, the Outlier Project, Fantail Services, Southern Sweet and Sassy Coffee, Ascend Meditations, and Chop AI. And if you've enjoyed this episode and learned something interesting about the topic covered today, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and let us know by leaving a comment. Tune in next week for another episode where we dissect leadership from another angle. And as we like to end the show, success to you.